Hi guys, it's Sophie. So today I'm going to be sharing with you my favourite books of 2018. I've chosen 8 and they are in order because it's 2018, so I thought that would be nice rather than 18 because I think then I'm kind of, it's never ending, so I'm doing 8. And yeah, they're in order of how much I like them, so we're going to start with number 8. 8. The Birth of a Bridge by Maylis to Kerangal. This is a book I read really early on into 2018 for my Around the World challenge, and I didn't think I was going to love this, like the way that I loved this. This is a story about a company building a bridge in an uninhabited part of Southern California, and it's basically like a construction story, but there's so much else woven in. There's like the feelings of the people who lived there before and how they feel, and these big, like terrifying characters like in the company, and what the employees feel and what they're doing. And it sounds mad, but I loved this book. It feels real but like not quite real, and I think the writing is just beautiful. So she uses like really odd words in the original French, and the translator had a note at the back of this book saying about how she was trying to find the words that gave you that same sense of like almost but not quite what you would have used naturally, which gives you this real jarring sense when you're reading, but not unpleasantly, just kind of you can still find what she's describing in that word, but it's a different look at something than maybe you've ever looked at it before. Yeah, I love this one. And for 7 I have The Last Wolf by Lazla, Krasznahorkai. This book has lots of love and a little bit of disappointment mixed in because I love this book so much. And when I picked up his more recent collection of short stories, I didn't love it at all. So I kind of feel like this is a little gem for me on its own. This is the story about a hunter who's trying to kill and exterminate the last of a species of wolves, and we go from his perspective like back to the perspective like from the other side, and it's like a kind of, it feels a bit like a high-speed chase sometimes, but there's so much like going on in here. Yeah, it's mad. It's backwards and forwards, and like there's no, I don't know if I can show you, but there's no like paragraph breaks or punctuation or anything, so you just kind of start and then you're going. And I thought that he might have been one of my new favourite authors, but unfortunately because I didn't love the other one, I think it's just that this is one of my new favourite books. For 6 I have one I haven't spoken about yet, and that is XX by Angela Chadwick. This is a story about 2 women who sort of go forward for this scientific breakthrough in which they can conceive a baby by ovum to ovum fertilisation. So basically they are able to have a baby that's biologically theirs as a lesbian couple. It is like really close to nowadays like sci-fi, like it's not a far-reach future, it's our world but with this technology, and it just kind of talks about like the prejudice and the fear and like the kind of response of men who are seeing as this as maybe like men are going to be exterminated, and them trying to cope with this thing sitting in the middle of it. It kind of reminded me a little bit of like a J.D. Pickup feel, like when I used to read those when I was younger, is in that it's kind of like a morality book, but it's just really well done, and it's just a like really interesting storyline, and I found myself thinking about it quite a lot, and I found it a little bit hard reading it because it's so close to where we are now, forgetting this isn't real, which I think is a really good sign. This one's fairly new, I don't know if it's out in paperback yet, but if you are interested I'd definitely recommend. At 4 we have The People in the Trees by Hanya Yanagihara. I read this one when I was in Turkey, and it was like all I wanted to do was go and read this book. So I was like surrounded by all this beautiful scenery and this gorgeous swimming pool and these beaches and mountains, and I was like, can I just go and sit somewhere and read The People in the Trees? Which is great because what was happening here was like even better than the amazing thing that was happening in my life. It is a bit of a weird, strange book, but it stayed with me so much. It's a story of a young kind of maverick doctor who goes out to look for this tribe of people who it's rumoured have the secret to immortality. And when they find them, they find that there is a sort of magical turtle that lets them live longer, and it's the story about that search and that kind of exploration of immortality, but then it goes into this like fabulous twist and turn of like the manipulation of the people, and it's so good. There are some trigger warnings here for sexual assault. I don't know if that was necessarily necessary for this book, but I think you know, it didn't mean I didn't enjoy the book. I very much enjoyed the book. This is another one that I like dove into and find myself like pulling away from and remembering it's not real, which is weird because this is such a like fantastical idea, but just the writing was gorgeous. I love stuff set in like rainforests, and like I could see it, and I really rarely get to like see things in my head, and yeah, the people in the trees gave that to me, and I'm thankful for it. The next one I have is a collection of short stories, and that is Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Machado. I read this one up at the cottage on Exmoor, like really frantically read through it, and they're kind of like feminist, horror, pop culture-y short stories that like just play with ideas. I just love short story collections that like have this specific feel, like there's a lot of representation in here, lots of different people with different sexualities and approaches to the world, and it's not like a clean and clear, like dry cut sense to it. It has like a lot of sex in it and a lot of like real stuff going on. If you're into like slightly strange short stories that deal with that kind of thing, you're definitely going to love this. I wanted to read this one again this year, but I'm holding off on it for a little bit, but I did genuinely absolutely adore it, and I've been kind of like looking out for anything that she's written since. I nearly actually bought McSweeney's like subscription for one of their magazines because there was a balloon that had a short story by her on it, and I was like, that's a bit far, but I follow her on Twitter, and I'm just waiting for her to write something else because I can't wait. The next one I have is like on quite a lot of people's top lists, and a lot of us are eating humble pie, and that is Normal People by Sally Rooney. Sally Rooney, I think, suffered quite a lot by a lot of like, not mismarketing, but like a slightly unhelpful marketing in a way, because she was definitely marketed as like a really easy read, like woman's writing, which I don't really like the phrase, but whatever. It was kind of that sense, and it didn't feel as though there was anything like literary in here, and that isn't my cup of tea. That's not quite a lot of people's cup of tea, like in this area of the booktube universe, and I guess they were going for higher readership. It was also like really heavily linked. It was like, this is the book of the times, this is our like zeitgeist, and sometimes that can be a bit overwhelming. You're kind of like, really, like we're just doing this, we're just, I don't know, it can just feel a little bit like you want to step away and not engage with it, and I think there was too much of that and quite a lot of hype in the wrong ways for Sally Rooney, and I completely avoided Conversation with Friends. I was convinced it wasn't for me. The cover also looked like a really like beachy best friends type read, and that isn't like what she does at all. Normal People is her second book, and this is the one that was longlisted for the Man Booker, and it's a book about a relationship between two people, and I think I love this and so many people love this because it's so real. Like the descriptions and the things that happen to these characters feel so real, and that's the same with Conversations with Friends. I think a lot of people can relate quite heavily to these books even if they don't like love the characters. I love this book. I was gutted that this didn't win the Man Booker. I adored it. It's not a like massively plot driven book, it's more of a book about how people develop, and yeah, I just loved it. I just thought it was absolutely brilliant. If you haven't read her yet, or you've been like unsure because of that feel it's had to its marketing, then hopefully on BookTube we convince you to give her a go. And then at number 2 I have My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Ottessa Moshfegh. I love this book. This was hard for me, a little bit hard to do my like top book because I love this book so much. I know Acacia Ives loves this book as well. We read it like at the same time. No, I think I read it just before and she read it just after, but we read it like really close together and talked about it a lot. This is a story about a woman who has like a pretty good life but is just kind of feeling a bit like fed up with it and is a bit bored of like the monotony, and she ends up going to the psychiatrist to try and get some medication that will help her sleep like through a year. And so she takes this year out of like drugged madness, and I think the reason I like was so drawn to this is I've like in my worst times I fantasize about this, about just dropping everything and saying no, I'm just gonna go and lie in bed, and that's like this really like narcissistic self-indulgent like fantasy lived out, like literally like having the disposable income and like just it's literally like the most indulgent thing that you could do, but it's also like you see it for like how horrid it is, and how you're like, her psychiatrist, you're like, who are you, where have you come from? It's more than that as well, but there's some stuff that happens in here that I don't really want to spoil, which is to do with like characters' journeys, and there's a big like denouement point like toward the end. Yeah, I absolutely loved it. I wish I could have had like almost 2 number ones, but I do think this comes in second to my first favourite book of the year. So the book I loved more than any other book in the whole of 2018 was Motherhood by Sheila Heti. I know that Ariel Bassett has spoken about this book on her favourites as well, and it deserves so much praise and time and attention. Motherhood is about a woman who's approaching like the end of her reproductive lifestyle. Like she knows she's getting to the point where if she doesn't have a baby soon, she's never going to have a baby, and she's throughout her life been unsure if she wants kids or not. And with this like deadline looming, it's kind of like begins to like slightly obsess her about, how do I make this choice? Like, what do I do with this choice? Do I wait and just wait for the time to run out? Do I have this baby now? What would I do if I had a baby? But more than that, the thing that like just I love and I found really difficult, I found this book challenged me a lot, and I had to sit and think, and it made me feel different, and that's always what I want from my like favourite books. Was that she's talking about like, what is motherhood? Like, what are all these societal things that tie in, and what's creation, and what has value, and what is a woman with a mother, who is a mother, and what's a woman who isn't, and is there any difference, and why do we say there's a difference? And yeah, it was just brilliant. Like, I'm not like at that stage of my life yet, but I think a lot of women go through that stage of like, at some stage I'm gonna have to make that choice, and it's like that choice like so beautifully like torn apart and broken down and considered. And I really struggled to think of this not as a memoir, because that's how it feels. There's also really clever things built in, like there's games of chance that are played in the book, and you don't know like where the story's going to go depending on the game of chance, and just clever like bits like that. It's an underlined book. If you've been here for a while, you know that like that's a really good sign. I'm just going to read one quote from here that I really like, and that is, "A woman must have children because she must be occupied. When I think of all the people who want to forbid abortions, it seems that can mean only one thing. Not that they want this new person in the world, but that they want the woman to be doing the work of the child rearing more than they want her to be doing anything else. There is something threatening about a woman who is not occupied with children. There is something at loose ends about such a woman. What is she going to do instead? What kind of trouble will she make?" I would recommend this so highly to everyone. I just want to send this to everyone. That is my aim for this year, is to send this book to everyone. Yeah, I loved it. You should 100% read it. I loved all of the books on that list. I actually think I had a really good year of reading. I also have just looked at my pile, and only one of those is from a male author, so I've been reading loads of women, and that's been really nice and a real difference from what I normally do. And I think I'm going to read some more women this year. I've really liked that experience. Yes, please buy some of these books. They are all brilliant, and they will bring joy to you. Just before I go, I also wanted to say that I'm doing a quick top 5 runners-up over on my Patreon. So if you guys don't know already, I've set up a Patreon account, and I'm sharing some extra content there for you guys, and there's a few things that happen if you join up to tiers. So have a look if you want to. I'm just going to be sharing another 5 books that came really close, and that I like really loved as well, but weren't quite in my top 8. So if you're interested in that, then you can go find it on Patreon. Alright, I'll see you guys again soon. Bye bye.